What happens when the one person destined to stand beside a king is the only one who refuses to bow? Tonight, in a ballroom glittering with ice and ambition, one Omega's defiance will shatter every rule of fate, and force an Alpha King to his knees. Hey there, wonderful souls. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome to your new obsession. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Drop a comment below and tell me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you all. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button because trust me, you're going to want to see how this story unfolds. Now, let's dive in. The chandeliers of Frostfang Palace dripped with enchanted ice that never melted, casting fractured rainbows across the polished marble floor. The scent of pine and cinnamon hung thick in the air, mingling with expensive perfumes and the musk of powerful wolves barely contained beneath human skin. Aria Wynford pressed herself against the stone pillar near the eastern alcove, counting the seconds until she could disappear. She shouldn't have come. Every instinct screamed at her to leave, to slip through the servants' entrance before the orchestra struck the first note of that dance. But her sister Lily had begged, "Please, Aria, just this once. You can't hide forever," and Aria had always been weak when it came to Lily's tears. Now, surrounded by alphas whose eyes tracked movement like predators and betas who whispered behind gloved hands, Aria understood she'd made a fatal mistake. The ballroom buzzed with anticipation. Tonight was the winter solstice, the longest night of the year, and tradition demanded the ancient mating waltz, a dance older than the palace itself, older than the bloodlines that ruled the 5 territories. Magic woven into music. Fate disguised as choreography. Aria had witnessed it once before, 3 years ago, hidden in the gallery above. She'd watched wolves find their mates mid-step, watched the golden thread of destiny pull tight between dancing pairs, watched joyous claims and tearful reunions. She'd also watched what happened when the magic revealed unwanted truths. Her fingers unconsciously traced the silver bracelet at her wrist, the only thing standing between her secret and exposure. The metal hummed against her skin, a constant reminder of everything she'd lost and everything she still had to lose. Ladies and gentlemen. The Royal Master of Ceremonies, a silver-haired beta named Winston, stepped onto the raised platform. His voice carried through the hall with supernatural clarity. In mere moments, we shall commence the sacred mating waltz. All unmated wolves are invited to take their places on the floor. Aria's heart hammered against her ribs. Around her, the crowd shifted. Young wolves preened and postured, some eager, others nervous. The unmated daughters of noble houses smoothed their gowns, checking their reflections in the ice sculptures that lined the walls. Alpha sons rolled their shoulders, letting hints of dominance leak into the air. Aria. Her sister materialized beside her, radiant in emerald silk that complemented her dark curls. "You're not seriously going to hide here all night?" "I'm not hiding. I'm observing." Aria kept her voice light, casual. "Someone needs to watch the drama unfold. The drama is on the dance floor." Lily grabbed her hand. "Come on. When was the last time you let yourself have fun?" Fun. The word tasted foreign. Fun was for wolves who didn't carry ghosts in their chest. Fun was for those who hadn't learned that fate could be cruel as often as it was kind. "I don't dance," Aria said firmly. "Everyone dances at the Christmas ball. It's literally in the invitation." Lily's playful tone couldn't quite mask the concern in her eyes. "Especially the mating waltz. What if your mate is out there? What if he is?" The thought sent ice through Aria's veins. She'd spent 3 years making sure no one, could sense what she truly was. The bracelet saw to that, masking her Omega nature behind a carefully constructed illusion of ordinariness. To the world, she was just Aria Wynford, unremarkable younger sister to the vibrant Lily, daughter of a minor noble house from the edge of the territory. Forgettable. Invisible. Safe. "The waltz will begin shortly," Winston announced. "Please take your positions." The crowd surged toward the center of the ballroom like a tide. Aria felt Lily's grip tighten, felt her sister's hope like a physical thing, bright and painful. "I can't," Aria whispered. "Can't or won't? Does it matter?" Before Lily could respond, a hush fell over the ballroom, the kind of silence that only comes when apex predators enter a space. Aria felt it in her bones first, a resonance that made her wolf whimper and press low inside her chest. Alpha King Rowan Thorne had arrived. He moved through the crowd like darkness itself, tall and broad-shouldered, his presence a gravitational force that bent everyone's attention toward him. His hair was black as a raven's wing, slightly too long, brushing the collar of his formal jacket. His eyes, even from across the room, Aria could see them, were the color of winter storms, gray and endless and utterly ruthless. Power rolled off him in waves. Ancient power. The kind that remembered when wolves ruled openly and humans cowered in their villages. Aria couldn't look away. He was speaking to someone, Lord Castellan, maybe, or one of the other high-ranking nobles, but his attention seemed distant, distracted. His wolf was close to the surface tonight. She could tell by the way the air shimmered around him, by how other alphas unconsciously gave him wider berth. "He's not dancing," someone nearby whispered. "The king never dances the mating waltz." "Of course not. He's been unmated for 32 years. If fate had chosen someone for him, he'd have found her by now. Maybe he doesn't have a mate. Maybe the bloodline is." The gossip died as Rowan's head turned sharply, his wolf clearly having heard. The nobles scattered like leaves. "Positions, please." Winston's voice cracked slightly. "The waltz begins in 1 minute." Lily tugged Aria's hand. "Last chance." "Go," Aria said, gently extracting herself. "Dance. Find your fate. I'll be right here when you're done." Hurt flickered across Lily's face, but she nodded and joined the others flowing onto the gleaming floor. Couples formed, some hopeful, some resigned, while unmated wolves stood in careful patterns, waiting for the music to guide them to destiny or disappointment. Aria retreated further into the shadows of her alcove, making herself small, invisible. Just a few more minutes, and the waltz would begin. Everyone would be too focused on the magic to notice one wallflower refusing to participate. The orchestra lifted their instruments. The conductor raised his baton. And Alpha King Rowan Thorne's gaze locked onto Aria like a targeting system. The world stopped. His conversation died mid-word. His entire body went rigid, every muscle suddenly coiled with predatory focus. The air around him crackled, actual sparks of dominance snapping in the space where his control usually held absolute. Aria couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. Couldn't look away from those storm-gray eyes that saw everything, straight through her bracelet, through her carefully constructed walls, through every defense she'd spent years building. His wolf was surfacing. She could see it in the way his pupils elongated, in the way his hands flexed at his sides, claws threatening to emerge. His lips pulled back slightly, not quite a snarl, not quite shock. Recognition. "No. Stop," Rowan commanded, his voice carrying such absolute authority that the conductor's baton froze mid-descent. "Stop the music." Confused murmurs rippled through the crowd. The king never interrupted the sacred waltz. Never. Rowan didn't seem to hear them. His focus remained laser-fixed on Aria, who had pressed herself so far back against the pillar she could feel the cold stone through her dress. "Everyone out," he said quietly. The ballroom fell into stunned silence. "Your Majesty." Winston ventured carefully. "The waltz." "Everyone. Out." Rowan's wolf bled into his words, turning them into a primal command that hit every wolf in the room like a physical blow. "Clear the ballroom. Now." What do you think just happened? Drop your theories in the comments, I love reading your thoughts. And if you're already hooked, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what comes next. Chaos erupted in whispers and shocked gasps. Noble families exchanged bewildered glances, but no one dared disobey a direct command from their king. The dominance saturating the air left no room for argument. This was alpha law, ancient and absolute. Winston recovered first, clearing his throat. "You heard His Majesty. Please proceed to the adjoining halls in an orderly." But the crowd was already moving, a confused river of silk and velvet flowing toward the exits. Some looked back over their shoulders, trying to understand what had just happened. Others whispered frantically, theories flying like sparks. Lily found Aria in the chaos, her eyes wide with alarm. What's happening? Why is he? Go, Lily. Aria's voice came out strangled. Please. Just go. I'm not leaving you. She stays. Rowan's words cut through the noise like a blade. He hadn't moved from his position across the ballroom, but his attention remained locked on Aria with terrifying intensity. Everyone else leaves. Now. A beta guard approached Lily gently but firmly, offering his arm to escort her out. Lily looked between her sister and the king, confusion and fear warring in her expression, but the guard was already guiding her toward the doors. Aria, Lily called back, but the crowd swallowed her voice. It took less than 3 minutes for Frostfang Palace's grand ballroom to empty completely. 3 minutes for hundreds of wolves to file out through multiple exits, their whispers fading into the corridors beyond. The guards closed the massive double doors with a boom that echoed like a death knell. Silence crashed down like a physical weight. Aria stood frozen against her pillar, the enchanted chandeliers now casting their fractured light across an empty expanse of marble. The ice sculptures dripped silent condensation. The abandoned orchestra stand looked like a skeleton in the shadows. And between her and those closed doors stood Alpha King Rowan Thorne. He still hadn't moved. Just stared at her with an expression caught between wonder and devastation, his chest rising and falling with barely controlled breaths. His hands trembled at his sides, the king's hands, trembling, before he clenched them into fists. 3 years, he said finally, his voice rough as gravel. I've been searching for 3 years. Aria's heart stopped. No. He couldn't know. The bracelet was supposed to. Every territory. Every pack gathering. Every god's damned ball and ceremony and political dinner. He took one step forward, and Aria felt it like an earthquake in her chest. My wolf has been clawing at me, telling me she was close, that I was missing something crucial. And all this time. Another step. The distance between them shrinking with terrifying inevitability. All this time, you were here. In my territory. Under my protection. His laugh was bitter, broken. How? How did I not sense you? Aria's fingers flew to her bracelet, covering it protectively. The silver burned against her skin, its magic working overtime to contain what wanted desperately to break free, her omega nature, her scent, the bond screaming to complete itself. You're wearing a masking charm. Rowan's eyes tracked the movement, and understanding dawned in those storm-gray depths. A powerful one. That's why. He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture almost violent. That's why my wolf has been going insane. He could feel you but couldn't find you. Like trying to grasp smoke. Your Majesty, Aria's voice cracked. She tried again. Your Majesty, there's been a mistake. No mistake. He moved closer, and she could see the war happening beneath his skin, his wolf surging, demanding, while the man tried to maintain control. I know what you are. What we are. The bond recognizes you even through that bracelet's magic. I'm nobody, Aria whispered desperately. Just a minor noble's daughter. There's no bond. There's nothing. Don't. The word came out sharp enough to cut. Rowan stopped his advance, visibly restraining himself. When he spoke again, his voice was softer but no less intense. Don't lie to me. Not about this. I can feel it, even through your shields. My wolf knows his mate. The word mate hung in the air between them, terrible and beautiful. Aria felt her carefully constructed world crumbling. She'd worked so hard to be invisible, to avoid this exact scenario. The bracelet had cost her everything she'd saved, payment to a witch who promised complete concealment. It was supposed to last another 5 years. Long enough for her to figure out a permanent solution. Long enough to escape the fate that had already destroyed her once. I can't, she said, and hated how her voice broke. I can't be your mate. Pain flashed across Rowan's face so quickly she almost missed it. Why? Because I'm king. Because you're Omega. His jaw clenched. I don't care about presentation politics. I don't care what the council thinks. You're mine, and I'm. Because fate is cruel. The words ripped out of her, 3 years of grief and rage finally breaking through. Because the bond doesn't care who it destroys. Because she cut herself off, breathing hard, realizing she'd said too much. Rowan went very still. Already what? Aria shook her head, wrapping her arms around herself. The ballroom suddenly felt too large, too cold, despite the hundreds of candles still burning in their sconces. Aria. He said her name like a prayer, like a plea. Talk to me. Whatever you're afraid of, whatever happened before. You don't understand. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. The mating waltz reveals bonds, yes. But it doesn't show you the future. It doesn't warn you that fate's gift comes with a price. She saw confusion flicker across his features, followed by something darker. Concern. Maybe even dread. 3 years ago, Aria continued, her voice hollow, I was engaged. Arranged marriage to an alpha from the Western Territory. My father's idea, strengthen political ties, secure our family's position. I didn't love him, but I didn't hate him either. It was acceptable. Rowan's hands clenched tighter, but he said nothing. Waited. Then I attended my first Christmas ball. I was 21. Naive. Excited, even. The memory tasted like ash. The mating waltz began, and I felt it, this pull towards someone across the room. Not my fiancé. Someone else entirely. A beta from the southern packs named Thomas Ashford. She watched Rowan's expression shift as he began to understand. The bond hit us both like lightning. Instant. Undeniable. My fiancé saw it happen. Aria's laugh was bitter. He released me from our engagement immediately. Said he wouldn't trap someone with a fated mate. Noble of him, really. What happened? Rowan's voice was carefully neutral, but she could hear the tension underneath. Thomas and I bonded within the week. Completed the mate bond the way it's supposed to be done, with joy and certainty and the blessing of fate itself. She met his eyes, letting him see the devastation in hers. He died 6 months later. Hunting accident in the southern mountains. A rockslide that shouldn't have happened, in territory he traversed 1,000 times before. The silence that followed was deafening. The healers said mate loss grief would kill me too. That most wolves don't survive losing their fated mate. Aria's hand pressed against her chest, where the phantom pain of a severed bond still lived. It nearly did. I spent a year barely functioning, barely breathing. The only reason I survived is because Lily refused to let me go. She sat with me every night when the mate sickness came. She forced me to eat when food tasted like poison. She held me when I screamed from the phantom pain of a bond that no longer had anywhere to anchor. Rowan looked stricken, his earlier intensity replaced with something rawer. More human. When I finally clawed my way back to something resembling life, I made myself a promise. Aria's voice hardened. Never again. I would never let fate choose for me again. I would never give the universe another chance to dangle happiness in front of me just to rip it away. So I bought the bracelet. Hid what I was. Became nobody. But you're not nobody, Rowan said quietly. I'm broken. The words fell between them like stones. Whatever your wolf senses, whatever the bond wants, it's wrong. I already had my mate. I already lost him. There's nothing left for fate to claim. She expected anger. Expected him to command her, to use his alpha authority to force acknowledgement of the bond. Instead, Rowan just stood there in the center of the empty ballroom, looking at her with such profound sadness that it hurt worse than any dominance could have. That's why you wouldn't dance, he said finally. You weren't refusing fate. You were protecting yourself from it. Aria nodded, exhausted. I can't survive losing another mate, Your Majesty. I won't. So whatever this is, she gestured between them, whatever your wolf thinks it feels, I need you to let it go. Let me go. Please. The Alpha King of the Northern Territory, the most powerful wolf in 500 miles, stood in his empty ballroom on the longest night of the year, and Aria watched something break behind his eyes. I can't, he whispered. And somehow, that quiet confession was more terrifying than any command could have been. The candles flickered as if responding to the emotional tempest between them. Aria wanted to run, every instinct screamed at her to flee this beautiful, dangerous man who threatened to unravel everything she'd rebuilt. But her feet remained planted, held by something deeper than fear. You can't, or you won't. Aria threw his own words back at him, trying to inject steel into her voice. Rowan finally moved, but not toward her. Instead, he walked to one of the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the snow-covered gardens, his silhouette dark against the frost-painted glass. My wolf has been searching for you since I came of age at 18. 14 years, Aria. 14 years of feeling incomplete, of watching other wolves find their mates while I remained alone. His reflection in the glass looked haunted. Do you know what it's like? Being king, surrounded by hundreds of wolves, and feeling utterly isolated because the one soul meant to understand yours is missing? I know what it's like to have that soul and lose it, Aria countered, but her voice softened despite herself. I'm not asking you to forget him. Rowan turned back to face her, and the raw honesty in his expression stole her breath. I'm not asking you to pretend Thomas never existed or that your bond with him wasn't real. I'm just asking you not to hide from what's between us. There is no us. Liar. The word was gentle, almost affectionate. Your wolf recognizes mine. I can see it in the way you're fighting not to respond to me. The bracelet hides your scent and presentation, but it can't completely suppress the bond. He was right, and they both knew it. Beneath the silver's magic, Aria's wolf was throwing itself against her mental barriers, desperate to acknowledge the alpha standing across the room. The mate bond hummed in her chest like a second heartbeat, faint but persistent, waiting for permission to fully form. The bond will kill me, Aria said desperately. When you die, or when fate decides I've been happy too long again, it will kill me. I barely survived once. I won't. What if I die first? Rowan's question cut through her panic. What if fate takes me before you? My wolf would rather have one day truly bonded to his mate than an eternity of this emptiness. That's insane. That's love. He moved closer, each step measured and careful, as if approaching a wounded animal. And yes, maybe it is insane. Maybe the bond is fate's cruelest gift. But I've spent 14 years being careful, being rational, being the perfect king who puts duty above everything. And where has it gotten me? Alone in a palace full of people, slowly going mad from the absence of you. Aria's back pressed against the pillar as he approached. Not from fear, though fear was certainly present, but from the overwhelming need to go to him, to close the distance, to let fate have its way. I watched you earlier, Rowan continued, stopping just outside what would be considered an intimate distance. Before I realized what you were. I watched you hide in the shadows, making yourself small, and I thought, there's someone who understands. Someone who knows what it's like to not quite fit in the glittering world around them. You're the king. You fit perfectly. I wear the crown perfectly. That's different. His smile was sad. I've been performing since I was 6 years old, when my father died and I became heir. Every word measured, every emotion controlled, every decision made for the good of the territory rather than myself. Do you know how exhausting it is? Always being what others need, never being simply, me. Despite herself, Aria felt understanding bloom. She'd been performing too, the dutiful daughter, the recovered widow, the woman who'd moved past her grief. All masks to hide the truth that she was still shattered underneath. That's why you cleared the room, she said quietly. Not just for me. For you too. For us. Rowan's hand lifted, hovering near her face but not quite touching. I needed everyone gone so I could stop being the king for one moment. So I could just be Rowan, standing in front of his mate, trying desperately not to screw this up. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something in Aria's chest. This wasn't the Alpha King using his authority. This was just a man, as lost and broken as she was, begging for a chance. I don't know how, she whispered. I don't know how to let someone in again. Then let me show you. His thumb brushed her cheek, the first real contact, and electricity sparked between them. Aria gasped, her wolf surging with recognition and desperate want. Let me prove that not all gifts from fate end in tragedy. Before she could respond, the ballroom doors burst open. Both Aria and Rowan spun toward the interruption, his body instinctively shifting to shield hers. A guard stumbled in, his face pale with panic. Your Majesty, forgive me, but, the guard's eyes darted between them, clearly uncomfortable. There's been an incident. The council demands your immediate presence. Rowan's expression hardened back into the king's mask so quickly it was like watching shutters slam closed. What kind of incident? The Western Alpha, Your Majesty. Damian Blackwood. He's arrived unannounced with an armed contingent. He's demanding an audience and... The guard swallowed hard, and he's asking for Lady Aria Wynford. Ice flooded Aria's veins. No. Why? Rowan's dominance crackled through the air, making the guard flinch. Why would Blackwood ask for her? He claims. The guard looked miserable, he claims she's his intended mate. That her family promised her to him 3 years ago, before her first bonding. He says that bond is now broken, which means the original agreement stands. The world tilted sideways. Damian Blackwood. Aria barely remembered him, a distant cousin of her original fiancé, someone she'd met perhaps twice at territorial meetings. Arrogant, ambitious, and known for collecting alliances like trophies. That's absurd, Aria said, finding her voice. There was never an agreement with Blackwood. My engagement was to Marcus Brennan, who released me honorably when the mate bond. Brennan's dead. The words fell like stones from the guard's mouth. Killed 2 months ago in a border skirmish. Blackwood claims that as Brennan's closest male relative, all agreements transfer to him. Including the marriage contract. Rowan's growl was purely animalistic. That's not how mate law works. No, Your Majesty, but he's claiming human contract law supersedes mate law in cases where the original bond was broken by death. The guard looked utterly uncomfortable delivering this information. He has documents. Lawyers. And 50 armed wolves backing his claim. He can't do this, Aria breathed. He can't just claim me like property. He's trying to force a political marriage before you can form another mate bond. Rowan's voice was deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded violence. It's a power play. Blackwood wants influence in the Northern Territory, and he's using you to get it. The implications crashed down on Aria. If Blackwood could prove a prior contract, and if she was considered unmated due to Thomas's death, then technically, legally, he might have grounds. It was archaic law, rarely enforced, but wolves were nothing if not traditional when it suited them. Your Majesty, he's threatening to involve the Interterritorial Council if you refuse to honor what he calls legitimate pack agreements. The guard looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. He's already sent ravens to the other alphas. Rowan's hands clenched and unclenched at his sides, his wolf clearly demanding he simply tear Blackwood apart and be done with it. But kings couldn't afford such simple solutions. Where is he? The Eastern Receiving Hall. Council members are gathering now. Tell them I'll be there shortly. Rowan's tone brooked no argument. The guard bowed and disappeared, leaving them alone again in the vast ballroom. Silence stretched between them, heavy with new complications. You have to let him take me, Aria said quietly. Absolutely not. Rowan, Your Majesty, you can't start a territorial war over my mate. His eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising. Watch me. I'm not your mate. Not officially. The bond isn't complete, isn't acknowledged. But a contract. She felt sick saying it. A contract is tangible. Legal. If you refuse to honor it, Blackwood can make your rule look unstable. He can turn the other territories against you. I don't care. You're the king. You have to care. Aria grabbed his arm without thinking, desperate to make him understand. The contact sent shockwaves through both of them, the incomplete bond flaring to life. She forced herself to continue through the sensation. You have a responsibility to your people that's bigger than whatever this is between us. This? Rowan caught her hand, holding it against his chest where his heart hammered. This is everything. You think I care about politics when my mate is about to be claimed by another alpha? He won't hurt me. It's just a marriage contract, just politics. He'll bond you. Rowan's voice went rough with barely suppressed rage. He'll complete a claiming bite whether you consent or not, because once you're bonded, you're his by wolf law. That's what this is really about, Aria. He doesn't want a marriage contract. He wants to force a bond so that I can't claim you. The truth of it hit her like a physical blow. Of course. Once bonded, even a political marriage became sacred under wolf law. And if Blackwood forced a bond? Her hand flew to her throat instinctively, protecting it. I won't let him touch you, Rowan said, his voice dropping to something primal and absolute. I don't care if I have to fight every alpha in 5 territories. I don't care if the council revolts. You are mine, and I protect what's mine. Even if it costs you everything. Aria searched his face, seeing the truth there before he spoke it. You are everything. And there, in the empty ballroom where she'd refused to dance, where fate had found her anyway, Aria felt the last of her walls begin to crumble. Then we fight, she whispered. Together. Rowan's smile was fierce and beautiful. Together. He pulled the silver bracelet from her wrist in one smooth motion. Magic shattered like glass, and suddenly Aria's true nature flooded the room, Omega sweet, powerful, and unmistakably his. The incomplete mate bond roared to life between them, golden and demanding. Now, Rowan said, his voice carrying alpha command and something infinitely softer, let's go remind Damian Blackwood exactly who you belong to. The eastern receiving hall was chaos barely contained beneath a veneer of civility. Council members lined the walls like sentinels, their expressions ranging from confusion to barely concealed excitement at the drama unfolding. At the center of it all stood Damian Blackwood, tall, blonde, and radiating the kind of arrogance that came from never being told no. 50 armed wolves flanked him, a show of force that bordered on declaration of war. The moment Rowan entered with Aria at his side, every wolf in the room reacted. Some bowed. Others tensed. But all of them scented the air, catching the unmistakable perfume of Omega that now surrounded Aria like a storm. Blackwood's eyes widened, then narrowed with calculating interest. Your Majesty. How convenient that you've brought Lady Wynford directly to me. She's not going anywhere with you. Rowan's voice was arctic, each word precisely controlled. He'd slipped back into his king persona, but Aria could feel the rage simmering beneath. I'm afraid that's not your decision. Blackwood gestured to a weasel-faced man beside him holding a leather portfolio. My attorney has the contracts. A marriage agreement between the Wynford family and the Brennan line, signed 3 years ago. Upon Marcus Brennan's death, all agreements transfer to his next of kin, me. That's not how mate law works, Counselor Evelyn, an older she-wolf with silver streaking her dark hair, spoke up. Marriage contracts are void if a mate bond forms. Her mate bond was broken by death, Blackwood countered smoothly. Which means Lady Wynford is unmated and therefore subject to the original agreement. She's not unmated. Rowan's dominance pressed against every wolf in the room like a physical weight. She's mine. Shocked whispers erupted. Several council members looked between Rowan and Aria, scenting the air again, catching the edge of an incomplete bond that was rapidly trying to solidify. Blackwood's expression went cold. Convenient timing, Your Majesty. You've been unmated for 14 years, but the moment I arrived to claim what's legally mine, suddenly you found your mate. He laughed, the sound bitter. Forgive me if I find that suspicious. Are you calling your king a liar? The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I'm saying that an incomplete bond, one formed in the last hour, perhaps, doesn't supersede a legal contract signed 3 years ago. Blackwood pulled a document from his attorney's portfolio, holding it up. This is binding. Signed by Lord Wynford himself. If you refuse to honor it, you're essentially telling every noble family in your territory that their agreements mean nothing. That you'll simply claim whatever omega you want, consequences be damned. It was masterfully done. Blackwood had trapped Rowan between duty and desire, between his role as king and his need to protect his mate. If Rowan refused to honor the contract, it could destabilize trust across the territory. But if he honored it, the contract is invalid, Aria said, her voice cutting through the tension. All eyes turned to her. Because I never consented to any agreement with the Brennan line. Your father consented on your behalf. That's how pact contracts work, Lady Wynford. Blackwood's smile was patronizing. Surely you understand that. I understand that forced bondings are illegal under interterritorial law, Aria shot back, lifting her chin. And that's what you're planning, isn't it? Force me into a bond before anyone can object. I'm planning to honor a contract your family made in good faith. Blackwood's tone remained reasonable, which somehow made it worse. If a bond forms naturally during our marriage, well, that's between mates. There will be no marriage. Rowan moved to stand beside Aria, a united front. Natural or otherwise. Then you're refusing to honor legitimate pact law. Blackwood looked to the council members. You all witnessed this. Your king, choosing personal desire over territorial stability. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. This was exactly what Blackwood wanted, to make Rowan look like a tyrant who bent rules for personal gain. Councillor Evelyn stepped forward. Perhaps we should verify the contract's legitimacy before making any decisions. If Lord Wynford truly signed this agreement. My father was desperate to secure our family's position, Aria interrupted, her voice shaking with suppressed emotion. After I lost Thomas, after the mate sickness nearly killed me, he became obsessed with protecting me through political alliances. But he never asked what I wanted. He never considered that I might not survive being forced into another bond. Your survival isn't my concern, Blackwood said coldly, dropping the reasonable facade for just a moment. The contract is my concern. And I intend to see it honored. The door burst open again. Lily rushed in, her face flushed, breathing hard. Wait. Don't, she saw Aria and stopped, relief flooding her features. Then she saw Blackwood and went pale. No. Aria, tell me you're not actually considering. Lady Lillian. Blackwood's smile didn't reach his eyes. How lovely to see you again. I trust your father as well. Lily's hands clenched into fists. Leave my sister alone, Damien. Ah, so you do remember me. Blackwood's tone turned mocking. From that delightful dinner party 2 years ago, where your father and I discussed family matters. Aria's blood ran cold. What family matters? Lily looked between her sister and Blackwood, guilt written across her face. Aria, I wanted to tell you, but father made me promise. Tell me what? Aria's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. The contract isn't just about you, Lily whispered miserably. It's about both of us. Father promised Blackwood an alliance with our family. You were supposed to marry Marcus, and I was supposed to. She couldn't finish. Bond with me once you came of age, Blackwood finished smoothly. Which happens next month, doesn't it, Lillian? Your 21st birthday. Rowan's growl was inhuman. You're trying to claim both sisters. I'm trying to honor an agreement your noble families made. Blackwood spread his hands as if he were the reasonable one. Lord Wynford wanted security for his daughters. I offered it. Now that circumstances have changed with Brennan's death, I'm simply adjusting the terms. Aria bonds with me now, Lillian bonds with me when she comes of age. The Wynford line is protected, and I gain the Northern Territory alliance I was promised. The room erupted. Council members shouted over each other, some defending the sanctity of contracts, others arguing for mate law supremacy. Lily looked devastated, and Aria felt her world imploding all over again. Her father had sold them both. Both of his daughters, bartered away like cattle for political security. Over my dead body, Rowan snarled, his wolf fully surfacing now. Gold bled into his eyes, and claws extended from his fingertips. You will not touch either of them. Then you'll start a war. Blackwood's wolves shifted into defensive positions, hands moving to weapons. I came here in good faith, with legal documentation, willing to resolve this peacefully. But if you refuse, I'll have no choice but to invoke interterritorial arbitration. Every alpha from here to the southern borders will hear how you denied legitimate pack contracts for personal gain. Do it, Rowan said flatly. Call every alpha you want. Let them come. They'll find your corpse by the time they arrive. Your Majesty, Counselor Evelyn interjected desperately, please. Consider what you're risking. The territory's stability, our trade agreements, our alliances, mean nothing compared to them. Rowan's gaze never left Blackwood. Give the order to your wolves to stand down and leave my territory, or I'll give the order to mine to tear you apart. The tension in the room reached a breaking point. Wolves on both sides prepared for violence, the air thick with dominance and barely restrained aggression. Then Aria did the one thing no one expected. She stepped forward, between Rowan and Blackwood, facing the latter with her shoulders back and her head high. I'll go with you. No. Rowan's hand shot out, grabbing her arm. Aria, don't. On one condition, Aria continued, ignoring the Alpha King's desperate grip. You leave Lily out of this. You honor the part of the contract that involves me, and you let my sister go. She's never been part of your schemes, Damien. She doesn't deserve to be collateral damage. Blackwood studied her, calculating. And what do I get in return for this generosity? Me. Without a fight. Without the scandal of forcing an unwilling Omega. Aria's voice was steady, even as her heart shattered. I'll come willingly, complete the bond, play the dutiful mate. But Lily goes free, and you leave this territory without bloodshed. Aria, no. Lily sobbed. You can't do this. Done, Blackwood said immediately, before anyone could object further. Your sister's debt is forgiven. You come with me tonight, we complete the bonding ceremony at my territory, and I'll even send a generous gift to your father as thanks for his cooperation. This isn't happening. Rowan's hand tightened on Aria's arm, his voice raw. Aria, you can't, we just. She turned to face him, and the pain in her eyes nearly brought him to his knees. You said you protect what's yours. This is me protecting what's mine. My sister. Your territory. Your crown. She reached up, touching his face gently. Sometimes love means letting go. That's not love, Rowan choked out. That's sacrifice. Isn't that the same thing? For a moment, just a moment, she let herself feel the incomplete bond between them, all the possibility, all the might-have-beens, all the joy they could have had if fate had been kinder. Then she carefully, deliberately, began building walls around it. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. She pulled away from his grip, from his heat, from the only man who'd made her want to try again. And she walked toward Damien Blackwood like a prisoner approaching the gallows. Wait. The word came from Counselor Evelyn, quiet but commanding. There is one other option. Everyone froze. What option? Blackwood demanded, suspicion darkening his features. Evelyn looked at Rowan with something like sympathy. Alpha King's right. Ancient law, rarely invoked, but still legally binding across all territories. Rowan's entire demeanor changed. The trial. What trial? Aria looked between them, confused. A challenge for mate rights, Evelyn explained. If two alphas both claim legal right to the same Omega, the dispute can be settled through ritual combat. The winner claims the Omega. The loser. She hesitated, forfeits all rights and leaves the territory permanently. Blackwood laughed. You can't be serious. Rowan, you'd risk your life over a contract dispute. But Rowan was already pulling off his formal jacket, rolling up his sleeves, his eyes locked on Blackwood with predatory focus. I'd risk everything for her. Name your time and place. And suddenly, impossibly, Aria felt hope crack through her despair. The ancient courtyard of Frostfang Palace had witnessed countless trials over the centuries, but none quite like this. Torches lined the stone walls, their flames dancing against the falling snow, casting shadows that made the space feel primal, timeless. The entire court had gathered, word of the Alpha King's challenge spreading through the territory like wildfire. Wolves lined every available space, perched on walls, crowding balconies, all desperate to witness what would become legend. Aria stood at the edge of the ritual circle, a space marked by ancient stones worn smooth by generations of combat. Lily clutched her hand, both sisters trembling for entirely different reasons. "He's going to get himself killed," Aria whispered, watching Rowan on the opposite side of the courtyard. He'd stripped to the waist despite the cold, his skin marked with the traditional sigils of Alpha Rite painted in silver ash. Blackwood has been training for combat his whole life. Rowan is a politician, a king. He's also the most dominant Alpha in 5 territories, Lily countered. And he's fighting for his mate. That makes him the most dangerous thing in this courtyard. Counselor Evelyn approached, her expression grave. "Lady Aria, you understand the terms. The victor claims you as mate, immediately and irrevocably. No appeals, no second trials. This ends tonight, one way or another." "I understand." Aria's voice was steadier than she felt. "But if Rowan loses?" "He won't," Evelyn said with surprising conviction. "I've known Rowan since he was 6 years old. I've never seen that look in his eyes before. Whatever happens in that circle, Damien Blackwood isn't walking out of it with you." Across the courtyard, Blackwood finished his own preparations. He was smiling, confident, surrounded by his wolves who clearly expected an easy victory. He caught Aria's gaze and winked, making her stomach turn. "Arrogant bastard," Lily muttered. "I hope Rowan tears him apart." The ceremonial gong sounded once, a deep, resonant note that silenced the crowd. Winston stepped into the center of the circle, his voice magically amplified. "By ancient law and Alpha Rite, we gather to witness trial by combat. 2 Alphas, 1 claim. Damien Blackwood of the Western Territory and Rowan Thorne, Alpha King of the North, will fight until one yields, falls, or dies." The crowd murmured. Death wasn't required, but with stakes this high, both wolves knew yielding was unlikely. "The prize," Winston's voice caught slightly, "is Lady Aria Wynford, Omega, whose mate rights are contested. The victor claims her immediately, completing the bond under witness of Pack and Moon." Aria felt her wolf surge at those words, desperate and terrified in equal measure. "Combatants, enter the circle." Rowan moved first, fluid and predatory, his wolf so close to the surface that his eyes glowed gold in the torchlight. Power rolled off him in waves, not the controlled dominance of a king, but something older, rawer. This was the Alpha who'd clawed his way to the throne at 16, who'd united fractured territories through strength and will. Blackwood entered from the opposite side, larger than Rowan but somehow less. His confidence seemed forced compared to the quiet certainty in Rowan's movements. "Last chance to back down," Blackwood called out, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "Walk away, Rowan. Let me take what's mine, and we can avoid this unpleasantness. She was never yours." Rowan's voice was barely human. "The moment she stepped into my ballroom, the moment our eyes met, she became mine in every way that matters. And I will burn the world before I let you touch her." The gong sounded again, twice this time. The signal to begin. They exploded into motion. Blackwood attacked first, shifting mid-leap into his wolf form, a massive blonde creature with scarred shoulders and cruel yellow eyes. But Rowan was faster, remaining human, using Blackwood's momentum against him. He sidestepped, claws raking across the wolf's ribs, drawing first blood. The crowd roared. Blackwood twisted, snapping at Rowan's throat, but the Alpha King was already gone, moving with impossible speed. Another strike, this time to Blackwood's hindquarters. Then another to his shoulder. "He's toying with him," someone in the crowd whispered. "Making him look weak." They were right. Rowan was systematically dismantling Blackwood's confidence, proving that size and aggression meant nothing against true dominance. Every strike was precise, calculated to humiliate rather than seriously wound. Blackwood shifted back to human, blood streaming from a dozen cuts. "Stop playing," he snarled. "Fight me properly." "Why?" Rowan circled him like a predator. "You came to my territory. Threatened my mate. Tried to use archaic laws to steal what was never yours. You deserve to understand exactly how outmatched you are." Blackwood lunged again, desperation making him sloppy. Rowan caught him mid-attack, using the larger man's weight to slam him into the frozen ground. The impact was brutal, Blackwood's head cracking against stone. "Yield," Rowan commanded, his hand around Blackwood's throat. "Yield and leave my territory alive." For a moment, Aria thought it was over. Then she saw Blackwood's hand move, reaching for something hidden in his boot. "Rowan," she screamed. "Silver blade." But her warning came a heartbeat too late. Blackwood's knife, illegal in ritual combat, slashed across Rowan's ribs. Silver burned wolf flesh like acid, and Rowan stumbled back with a roar of pain. The crowd erupted in outrage. Using silver in ritual combat was forbidden, an offense punishable by death. But Blackwood didn't care, he pressed his advantage, slashing again, catching Rowan's shoulder. "Should have let me have her," Blackwood panted, advancing with the burning blade. "Should have been smart instead of sentimental." Rowan dodged another strike, his movement slower now, silver poisoning spreading through his system. Aria watched in horror as the Alpha King she'd just begun to trust, to maybe even love, fought through agony that would have felled a lesser wolf. "Stand down!" Counselor Evelyn shouted. "Blackwood, you violated sacred law. The trial is forfeit." "The trial is mine." Blackwood snarled back. "He's wounded, weakened. I claim victory and I claim her." He lunged at Rowan one final time, blade aimed for the heart. But Rowan, despite the silver poisoning, despite the pain, had been waiting for exactly this moment. He shifted, not to wolf but to something between, the battle form few alphas could achieve. Larger than human, stronger than wolf, covered in dark fur with claws like knives. He caught Blackwood's wrist mid-strike, and everyone in the courtyard heard the bone snap. The silver blade fell, useless, to the frozen ground. "You cheated," Rowan's voice was distorted by his partial shift, but the words were clear enough. "You brought dishonor to your territory, to your bloodline, to every wolf witnessing this trial. And for what? A woman who would have despised you. Power you could never have earned legitimately." Blackwood whimpered, trying to pull free, but Rowan's grip was unbreakable. "I should kill you for what you tried to do," Rowan continued, his glowing eyes finding Aria in the crowd. "For threatening her. For making her think she had to sacrifice herself. For trying to take away the only thing that's ever made me feel complete." "Please," Blackwood gasped. "I yield. I yield." Rowan held him there a moment longer, making sure every wolf present understood who truly held power in this territory. Then he released Blackwood, letting him collapse to the ground. "You're banished from the Northern Territory. Permanently." Rowan's command echoed with alpha authority that couldn't be denied. "Take your wolves and go. If you ever return, if you ever speak her name again, I will finish what I started here tonight. Do you understand?" Blackwood nodded frantically, scrambling backward toward his stunned contingent. "Good." Rowan shifted back to human form, swaying slightly from the silver poisoning. "Now get out of my sight." Blackwood's wolves grabbed their alpha and fled, disappearing into the night like shadows. The moment they were gone, the courtyard erupted in celebration, cheers and howls echoing off the ancient stones. But Rowan wasn't paying attention to any of it. His eyes, still slightly gold, found Aria across the ritual circle. She was already moving, breaking free from Lily's grip, running across the space between them. She caught him as he stumbled, his weight nearly taking them both down, but she held firm. "You idiot," she sobbed, pressing her hands against his wounds where silver had burned. "You stupid, heroic idiot. You could have died. Worth it." His smile was pained but genuine. "Totally worth it. The silver, you need a healer. I need you." His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing away her tears. Everything else can wait. I need to know, will you let me try? Will you give us a chance, even knowing what fate might do? Even knowing there are no guarantees? Aria looked at this man who'd fought for her, bled for her, risked everything for her. This alpha king who'd cleared an entire ballroom just to speak with her honestly. Who'd looked at her broken pieces and saw something worth fighting for. She thought of Thomas, of the love they'd shared and the grief that had nearly destroyed her. That would always be part of her story. But maybe it didn't have to be the end of it. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll try. I'm terrified and probably still broken, but yes. Rowan's smile could have lit the darkest night. He leaned down, pressing his forehead to hers, and Aria felt the incomplete bond between them surge with golden light. It didn't demand completion, not yet. It simply hummed with possibility, with promise, with the gentle suggestion that maybe, just maybe, fate could be kind. Then let's start with this, Rowan murmured. Dance with me. Here. Now. You're wounded and there's no music. But the orchestra from the Christmas ball had materialized at the courtyard's edge, instruments ready. At Rowan's nod, they began to play, soft and sweet, the mating waltz she'd refused hours ago. Rowan took her hand, pulling her close despite his injuries, and led her in a slow turn around the ritual circle. The crowd went silent, watching their king dance with his mate beneath falling snow and a full winter moon. I don't know the steps, Aria admitted, letting him guide her. Neither do I, Rowan confessed. But I figure we'll learn together. And there, in a courtyard marked by combat and blood, surrounded by witnesses who would tell this story for generations, Aria Wynford finally let herself dance. Let herself trust. Let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, fate's second chance could be as beautiful as its first. When the music ended, Rowan kissed her softly, sweetly, with nothing but reverence and promise. The bond between them glowed brighter, not yet complete but no longer in doubt. I love you, he whispered against her lips. I will love you through whatever comes. Through joy and grief, through peace and war, through every moment fate grants us. You're my mate, Aria. Today, tomorrow, and every day after. I love you too, she answered, and felt the truth of it settle in her chest beside her old grief. Both could exist. Both were real. My alpha king. His smile was radiant. My dancing queen. Lily tackled them both with a squeal, Counselor Evelyn was openly crying, and the entire territory erupted in celebration that would last through the night and into the dawn. The Christmas ball at Frostfang Palace would be remembered for many things, but mostly for the night an Omega refused to dance, and an Alpha King moved heaven and earth to change her mind. And they lived happily ever after. What did you think of this epic love story? Drop a comment with your favorite moment. And if you loved this tale, subscribe for more emotional werewolf romances that will make your heart soar. See you in the next story, beautiful souls.